In 2002, a bankrupt Dutch company was about to delete one of the most important pieces of creative software ever written. A small team had about 7 weeks to raise €110,000 from strangers on the internet. Or the code? Well, it was gone forever. And 23 years later, the thing that they saved would stand on the Oscar stage, named in an acceptance speech, beating Pixar. So this is the story of Blender, and it's not really a story about 3D software. It's really a story about the single most underrated growth strategy in technology, which is building a movement of people who feel like they own the thing that you made. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly how Ton Roosendahl pulled it off, and the one belief about community that almost every founder seems to get backwards. Now, let's go back to the beginning, because in the beginning, it was not great. In March 2002, a company called Not a Number went bust. They built Blender as a proprietary tool. They'd given it away for free, and they tried to monetize it through a commercial product called Blender Publisher. Now, the dot-com crash was obviously not great, and it killed their sales. So the investors took the source code as an asset, and they basically sat on it. Ton Roosendahl, the founder, watched the thing that he built kind of disappear into a filing cabinet. Now, most founders would probably have just moved on, but Ton, well, he did the opposite. He walked back to those investors and he made an offer that honestly sounded a bit crazy. He said, if I can raise €100,000 from the user community, would you consider releasing the source code for Blender under the GPL license? The investors, well, they said yes, probably because they thought it was completely impossible, because back then there was no Kickstarter, there was no Patreon, crowdfunding as a concept didn't really exist yet. He had 250,000 registered users in 7 weeks. Now, he hit that number in 7 weeks flat. But just think about how crazy this is. €110,000, 250,000 people who'd never collectively done anything before, suddenly acting as one kind of organism to buy back a piece of software that they did not legally own from a bankrupt company they had no relationship with, to give it to a foundation that didn't exist yet. And on October the 13th, 2002, Blender went open source. And that's the moment that most people think that this story begins. But it's actually the moment that the real strategy begins. Because here is what Ton understood that almost nobody else did. Open sourcing the code, it's kind of the easy bit. You can do that in an afternoon, but building a movement around it, well, that takes a decade of deliberate, slightly fucking bonkers decisions. And he made every one of them. Decision number 1. In 2006, the Blender Foundation, through its Orange Open Movie Project Studio in Amsterdam, produced the world's first open source film, Elephant Stream. They funded it with DVD pre-orders where every single backer's name appeared in the credits. Then, when the film was finished, they did something that nobody in the film industry had ever done. They released all 7 gigabytes of production files under Creative Commons licenses. The character rigs, the textures, the scene files, the render settings, everything. 2 years later, they did it again with Big Buck Bunny, which has since become one of the most used test files in streaming infrastructure on the planet. Now, this was not marketing, it was kind of an involvement engine. Anyone in the world could pull apart a professional quality animation and learn from it for free. The community didn't just consume Blender, they studied the same files the professionals studied. They contributed back. They felt, correctly, that they were part of it. And for years, by the way, the software was not that great. The interface was famously baffling and studios kind of laughed at it, but none of that mattered because the community trajectory was so obviously credible that people bet on the movement, not just the product. And then slowly, the movement built the product. So fast forward to 2019, and Epic Games walks in and drops a $1.2 million grant on the Blender Development Fund. And then something kind of extraordinary happens. Nvidia joins, Microsoft joins, then AMD, Intel, Meta, Amazon, Google, Apple, Ubisoft. By 2026, the fund has taken over $326,000 a month from 47 corporate members and over 7,000 individuals. Netflix Animation Studios joined in January at €240,000 a year. But look at the order of operations here, because this is the bit that founders tend to get backwards when they study these kinds of stories. Epic did not create the community. Nvidia did not create the community. Netflix did not create the community. The community was already there and so credible that not joining started to look like kind of a strategic mistake. The corporates followed the movement did not follow the corporates. And in the same year, 2019, Ubisoft Animation Studio announced that it was switching its primary production tool to Blender. Their head of production said the reason, on the record, was the community and the foundation's vision. Not features, not pricing, the community. In Tokyo, Kara, Hideaki Anno's studio behind Evangelion, did the same thing and explicitly said that they wanted to share their know-how to make the community stronger. And then Hollywood actually showed up. In 2023, Sony Pictures Imageworks used Blender's grease pencil in the production pipeline of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, a film that grossed nearly $700 million, used an open-source tool built by volunteers because the proprietary tools at the center of their pipeline could not do what Blender's grease pencil could do. And then, in March 2025, the Latvian film Flow, made entirely in Blender by a small team on a micro-budget, won the Academy Award for the Best Animated Feature. It beat Inside Out 2, it beat The Wild Robot, and the director, Gint Zibalodis, stood on the Oscar stage and said the words out loud,
"Thank you to Blender."
A piece of software that was nearly deleted in a Dutch bankruptcy filing in 2002 had just been thanked from the Oscars stage. Now, I've known Ton Roosendahl for many years, and he's an incredible person with an enormous amount of passion for the Blender project. But what did he actually do that founders, CMOs, heads of community, DevRel people can learn from? Well, it's not that he open sourced the code. Plenty of projects open source their code and nothing happens. It's that at every decision point, he gave the community a named, tangible way to participate. Donate to the buyback and your name goes in the foundation. Pre-order the DVD and your name goes in the credits. Download the source files and remix them. Join the fund at the bronze, silver, gold, or patron tier, and it's public. Show up at the Blender conference. Contribute to a subsystem. The community never had access to Blender. They had ownership of Blender. And that's the thing that almost everyone seems to miss about community building. People don't become part of your movement because they like your product. They become part of a movement because they feel like they're shaping it. They've got skin in the game. Their fingerprints are on it. If you take that away, you don't have a movement. You've got a customer base, and customer bases churn. In September 2025 at the Blender conference keynote, after 23 years of building, Ton announced that he was stepping down as chairman and CEO effective January 1st, 2026. He spent 6 years deliberately distributing his 4 roles across 4 other leaders. And there was no crisis, there was no schism. The community held. And one of the most charismatic founders in open source software walked away. The movement didn't even wobble because it was never really his anymore. He gave it away. That was the whole point. So the question isn't whether your product is the best. Blender wasn't the best for most of its life. The question is whether the people who use it feel like they own a piece of what happens next. Because if they do, they'll fund you when you go bankrupt. They'll defend you when you are mocked. They'll contribute when you can't afford to hire. And they'll put your name on the fucking Oscar stage when you're not in the room. Now, if you want to see another incredible example of this kind of movement building in action, you should go and check out this video next, because this is where I tell the story of how Mozilla Firefox, a young upstart, took on the completely entrenched Internet Explorer and built a phenomenal global movement that really changed the face of the web, even showcasing their contributors in the New York Times. So go check out that video next. I'll see you there.